just get out of my place. I don't know why you're here. You shouldn't be here. Just get out, okay? I don't know why.
26 clips, 7 levels. This is an iceberg of the most disturbing footage caught on camera. We'll begin with some pretty ominous stories that'll make you double-check your locks tonight. But fair warning, some of these people actually ended up recording their own death. So it's going to get pretty graphic. Let's begin at the tip of the iceberg. Level 1. Postman pushed onto oncoming train. In 2024, a horrifying scene unfolded at Oxford Circus Station when someone pushed an elderly postman onto the train tracks. Tadeusz Potocek was coming back home from work when something happened that almost ended his life. In the CCTV footage, Potocek was seen walking on the platform when suddenly a guy on a bench got up and shoved him. Potocek was caught off guard and fell down on the tracks just as the train was pulling up. Fortunately, he missed the live rail, and another bystander helped him get back up onto the platform. The train driver also hit the emergency brakes after spotting Potocek's bright red jacket. The attacker was later identified as 24-year-old Burwa Sorsh. According to Sorsh, the postman gave him a dirty look, so he got angry and pushed him. He also added that he didn't intend to end Potocek's life. But intentions don't really matter here. It's terrifying to think that someone can randomly get up and attack you just because they thought they saw something. Sorsh was later found guilty and given a life sentence. Meanwhile, the helpful bystander was awarded £1,000 for saving a life. So if it wasn't for a bystander, or if the driver had not been paying attention, this video footage could have been much more horrifying. Store owner by father and son. In neighborhoods like Sultanbeyli, Turkey, arguments at local shops can quickly get out of hand. What starts as a simple disagreement over a bill escalates into a full-blown fight. This is exactly what happened at a pharmacy in 2018, where a father and his son had a heated exchange with the store owner, leading to a medical emergency. The incident was caught from two perspectives, so you can see pretty clearly what went on. According to the reports, the father and son had bought medicine from the pharmacy, but came back because the assistant had charged them an extra $1. They probably went to demand a refund or compensation. After yelling for a few minutes, the two men stole a box from the pharmacy and slammed the door on their way out. The doorway camera also showed the guy throwing the stolen item to the ground. The owner followed them outside to confront them, but the argument quickly turned violent when the father responded aggressively. The owner's brother and son immediately rushed out from the back to help him. They even managed to pin down the father, but the struggle took an even darker turn when the younger attacker kicked the owner's son in the face, knocking him out instantly. Back inside the shop, the cashier frantically tried to call for help. Once the man was down, bystanders grabbed the two attackers and put an end to it. But the victim had a long road ahead of him. His neck was stuck in an awkward position, and he was rushed to the hospital. It was the type of serious injury that can even lead to partial paralysis. All of this happened because of just $1. Level 2. Driver stabbed with a needle. On the 1st of July 2025, Tarda released a 4-minute-long video of one of their drivers getting stabbed by an intoxicated man. The altercation started when 44-year-old Aaron Wiggins got on the bus. The driver wasn't exactly thrilled. Wiggins looked disheveled, like someone who could cause trouble, and the driver probably sensed that. Wiggins put money in the fare machine, taking his sweet time by putting in 1 coin at a time. Meanwhile, the driver was losing his patience, and the entire situation became tense and uneasy. Someone was going to snap. The final nail in the coffin was Wiggins pulling down his pants and exposing himself to the driver. The driver took out his radio and tried to kick out Wiggins, who then pulled a sharp object out of his bag. Before anyone could stop him, he stabbed the driver in the face and ran off. Thankfully, the driver was not seriously injured and immediately called the authorities for backup. The police later caught Wiggins and found 2 screwdrivers in his bag, as well as another weapon. If Wiggins had pulled out a different weapon, the driver could have easily lost his life. The Tarda clip started a debate on driver safety. In 2024, a guy was stabbed in a bus full of people because there is little to no control over what passengers can carry with them. However, in this incident, Wiggins did not seem stable. Without realizing it, the driver just threw fuel on the fire. Even so, the footage is a chilling reminder to never let your guard down in public. Brawl in Manchester Airport. In 2024, a routine arrest at Manchester Airport went horribly wrong when two brothers got in a brawl with the police officers, leaving one with a seriously bloody nose. The incident started inside the airport's Starbucks, where a passenger named Ismail was confronted by Amaz and his brother. After a brief argument, Amaz viciously headbutted Ismail. The reason? Ismail had caused trouble on their flight back from Qatar, and Amaz was demanding an apology on behalf of his mother. When he didn't get it, he became aggressive. But what happened next sparked a massive media frenzy. After Ismail made a complaint, the police went to arrest Amaz, who started throwing punches. The scene descended into pure chaos as his brother Ahmad also jumped in. Amaz then shoved one female officer and punched another, breaking her nose and knocking her to the ground. After a struggle, the officers managed to restrain him on the floor. In the chaos, his mother tried to intervene and also got hit in the face by one of the officers. The footage is a terrifying whirlwind of flying fists, and everything happened so quickly that it's hard to even make sense of it. Later, in court, the brothers claimed that they were acting in self-defense, while Amaz said that he feared the officer would batter him to death. But when you look at the footage from the Starbucks, it tells a different story. In another clip that was shown in court, one of the female officers was also seen crying hysterically with a bleeding nose. For the jury, this was enough evidence of the boy's violent nature. As of August 2025, Amaz is still awaiting his sentence. Pittsburgh neighborhood drive-by shootings. It was a random Wednesday morning in a Pittsburgh housing complex. As two residents were getting into their car, another vehicle pulled alongside them. Two assailants jumped out and immediately opened fire, sending the residents scrambling for their lives. Luckily, the bullets missed their target. The attackers quickly got back in their car and drove away. The chilling scene was caught on a surveillance video, and it rattled the entire neighborhood. After 5 days, the same car pulled up to the driveway at night. This time, the gunmen didn't bother getting out. Leaning out of their car windows, they opened fire down the deserted street as they drove away. It seemed like they were either trying to scare someone or simply damage their property. The question is, why weren't they already behind bars? After they torched the neighborhood the first time, they had the audacity to do the exact same thing again without any repercussions. The nature of the attacks was also puzzling. Did the gunmen really have such a terrible aim, or did they intentionally miss their targets? One thing was clear. It was an extremely dangerous and reckless thing to do in a neighborhood with children. But unfortunately, this is nothing compared to the dreadful things that have happened in these neighborhoods. And if you don't believe me, hit that subscribe button and see more examples for yourself. Level 3. Attic intruder caught on camera. In 2009, Joe Cummings posted some footage on YouTube that shocked the internet. Joe had noticed missing food in his apartment, but neither he nor his girlfriend had eaten it. So he decided to set up a camera in his hallway, expecting to find his girlfriend pulling a prank on him. But he never could have expected what he saw next. Just 2 hours after the camera was installed, a woman climbed down from a crawl space into Joe's kitchen. First, she peed in the kitchen sink, then she went to the fridge and pantry and helped herself. Sometime later, when Joe came out for a drink, the woman quickly hid in the lounge. After Joe went back to sleep, the woman sat down to watch some television while snacking away. After a while, she climbed back into the crawl space. The entire clip is truly unnerving. To have someone else living in your house, eating your food, and using your things all without you knowing about it. It's invasive and creepy. Imagine Joe's reaction when he finally saw the intruder lingering in his own crawl space. He called the cops, but did not press any charges. Apparently, the woman had been living in his house for weeks but hadn't stolen anything other than food. There have been several other cases of intruders secretly living in people's homes. Some people have even found neighbors hiding in their attics watching their every move. Joe should count his lucky stars that all the woman did was eat and sleep. Longview bus driver attacked with a knife. Apparently, far more bus drivers get yelled at than you think. But what isn't so common is the guy suddenly pulling a knife and turning it into a potential crime scene. That's what happened to a bus driver in Longview, Texas. He was going about his route when he got into a deadly argument. The altercation then took a drastic turn. The attacker pulled out a knife and got into a tussle with the driver. The men struggled as the driver fought back for his dear life. Moments later, another passenger came to the rescue and dragged the attacker away, throwing him off the bus. According to a witness, the argument had been going on for a while, and the bus driver had even tried to signal a cop who was passing by. The attacker was identified as Esteban Pittman. He was later arrested and charged for almost stabbing a man to death. Man shoots through door at would-be burglars. Two men are kicking down your front door, and you have only a few seconds to react. What do? Because this guy just shot straight through his door. Ethan Rodriguez was playing games in his lounge when someone rang his doorbell. Since he didn't know the guy, Rodriguez answered the door using his mobile app. The man claimed he was a maintenance worker there to check the air filters. He also had a bunch of papers in his hand and was even pretending to write something down. Rodriguez told him that no one was home and hung up. The man pretended to leave, but seconds later, Rodriguez heard a loud bang. What he saw on the camera immediately sent him into fight or flight mode. Two men kicking the door with full force, hoping to literally break in. Rodriguez only had moments before the men got inside, and by the looks of it, they were armed. He immediately grabbed his firearm and shot at them 13 times. The bullets passed straight through his door and hit the wall in his hallway. Thankfully, his neighbors were not home to witness the disaster. This was probably the last thing the burglars expected, so they ran away in a state of panic. After the police arrived, they found two bullet holes that started from outside the apartment door, meaning that the attackers did shoot back. So many things could have gone wrong here. There was a baby at home in the middle of a potential home invasion. With more than 13 rounds fired, it's a miracle no one was hurt. In an interview, Rodriguez told reporters that he knew the burglar was lying because he had already made a complaint about the filters and was told that they couldn't be replaced.
I knew it was a lie because last time we had tried to get our maintenance to get our air filter changed, they told me they couldn't do anything about it.
Talk about an incompetent management saving the day. Jamal Wali. On April 23rd in Fairfax, Virginia, officers pulled over Jamal Wali during a routine traffic stop. But things did not go as planned. Before the end of the clip, Wali would end up dead. Wali was a former military translator for the American forces in Afghanistan. He had escaped the Taliban, but now found himself in a downward spiral of desperation in a foreign land. After the incident, body cam footage from 3 different angles showed the deeply disturbing scene. When Wali was stopped for an expired safety inspection sticker, the situation immediately became tense. As the officer demanded a driver's license, Wali told him that he was armed. He became more and more aggressive, refusing to even provide his name or identification. He mentioned that he had 4 kids and that he didn't give a damn. As his frustration boiled over, he seemed to be having a meltdown, ranting about how he couldn't get a job and how he felt abandoned by the country he had served. It seemed like the expired sticker was his breaking point. After a few minutes, backup officers also approached the car. As Wali reached for his ID, an officer suddenly grabbed his wrist. That's when Wali pulled out his own pistol and fired several shots. He hit 2 of the officers in the arm before the 3rd officer shot back, striking Wali 4 times. At the local hospital, Wali was pronounced dead. Heartbreaking details about this story emerged afterward. Wally's family, including his brother, had reportedly been killed by the Taliban back in Afghanistan. Crushed by trauma and struggling to support his wife and 4 children, he was overwhelmed, and it showed. Footage left everyone wondering about Wally's children and what happened to them. Unprovoked attack caught on camera. In Delhi, CCTV cameras recorded a troubling scene where a man savagely beat up 3 people. Why? Because their family dog barked at him. The man in question was Dharamveer Dahiya, who lived on the same street as the family. While he was out on a morning walk, his neighbor's dog Tommy started barking at him. He was pissed. The dog's owner Rakshit was watching, and an argument broke out between the 2 men. After a few minutes, Dharamveer went to Rakshit's house and tried to force his way in. Rakshit's wife spotted the man and ran back to stop him. At this point, the situation took a horrible turn as the man grabbed an iron pipe and started beating Rakshit's wife before walking away. The rampage didn't stop there. Just as everyone thought that the madman was finally gone, he came back. This time he started beating Rakshit's uncle and another man. He was in a blind rage, swinging at anyone in his path. After what seemed like an eternity, Dharamveer was finally restrained while his victims tried to process the traumatic attack. With a metal rod of that size, a blow to the head could have been fatal. And it seemed like Dharamveer didn't really care if someone did end up dead. The case was filed against him, and he was booked for his unhinged behavior. Bricktown shooting. Bricktown is Oklahoma City's entertainment hub with over 40 bustling restaurants and bars. But in 2020, everything changed in a flash. At 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, 2 men pulled up outside the comedy club and opened fire, sending pedestrians into a frenzy. Surveillance footage captured the moments leading up to the mayhem. Initially, several people were seen hanging around in the area. It was late, so many of these people were ready to go home, while some were still enjoying their night. Even though everything seemed normal, on closer inspection, something was definitely wrong. At one point, a man even pulled a gun from his car. Just a minute later, a white sedan came down the street, mowing down a pedestrian crossing the road. People immediately started running, and you could see the mood shift. Then came the black SUV, and suddenly shots started flying from everywhere. The crowd had now vanished, and the street had become a death trap. A few men could be seen crawling on the pavement as rogue bullets flew in every direction and shattered car windows. An officer nearby heard the shots and rushed to the scene. Even though he opened fire on the SUV, they still managed to escape into the night. The major casualty of the shootout was a 30-year-old man who was taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound. Level 4. Doorbell camera captures shootout. In the middle of a Tuesday afternoon in New Orleans' St. Roch neighborhood, a doorbell camera captured a terrifying scene. The neighborhood looked more like a war zone. The footage showed 3 young men walking down the street and spotting a gray SUV heading down the road. They clearly knew something was about to go down because 2 of the men instantly ducked behind a car and took out their guns. Meanwhile, the 3rd guy straight up fled the scene just as the SUV opened fire. The 2 men also shot back, but it seemed like they were just spraying and praying. Somehow, nobody got hit. Residents just going about their day were suddenly caught in the middle of a shootout. One neighbor, who was too scared to give her name, said she was standing inside her house when she heard the shots and immediately ran to the back. Bullets riddled the neighborhood, and some of them even tore into a nearby rental. One bullet went straight through a side window, and another shattered glass on the front of the house. Luckily, the guests were in the kitchen at the time. Despite investigating, the police didn't have any leads, leaving the residents scared for their lives. What's truly chilling is the attackers' audacity. They opened fire in broad daylight, traumatizing an entire community, and then vanished like nothing happened. And here's where the story gets even darker. If these guys hadn't been carrying guns, would they have simply been shot down in the street? Fat Tuesday sports bar shooting. What was supposed to be a regular Saturday night outside Fat Tuesday's sports bar turned into a scene from Goodfellas when two men were shot dead in the parking lot. Surveillance video from that night showed the shooter, Darius Matthews, loitering in the parking lot for a couple of minutes. At one point, he and another man began exchanging words. The conversation was brief. Suddenly, the other man's body language shifted. He became aggressive and began to shove Matthews. That was a mistake. Matthews pulled out a handgun and fired multiple shots. The man, now critically wounded, stumbled and limped back inside the bar, desperately trying to cling to life. And Matthews didn't wait around, quickly fleeing the scene. When officers finally arrived, they discovered a horrific scene. One man was on the ground with a life-threatening gunshot wound. Another man was also wounded, though his injuries were less severe. The bar's owner, Rick Johnson, was at home when he got the call. He said he ran every light in the city trying to get here, but by the time he'd arrived, the damage was done. He knew Darius Matthews, who was a frequent customer at the bar, but no one knows what exactly possessed him to almost take someone's life. From the footage, it didn't seem like Matthews was planning to actually shoot the guy, but instead of walking away from a fight, he took out his gun and turned a minor conflict into a potentially fatal one. Apparently, Matthews also realized the gravity of his actions because he turned himself in after a few days. It seemed like the guilt was eating at him. Daylight gunfight. Surveillance cameras on Shawmut Avenue in Boston captured a shocking scene when a person in a red sweatshirt began firing at a group of people on the sidewalk. The incident happened just before 7 p.m., a time when many children were out playing baseball in Ramsey Park. The crime scene was only a few feet away from the playground, so the timing could not have been worse. The attacker pulled out his handgun and shot directly at 18-year-old Macius Battle right in front of a grocery store. Surprisingly, the guy was not hit even though the attacker was right in his face. The same couldn't be said for his cap, which went flying off. If you're wondering what happened to Battle, well, it turns out he had his own backup. Another teen, presumably a friend of his, stepped out from behind the building with a weapon and shot at the attacker as he ran away. Once police swarmed the area, 20 shell casings were found on the street. Battle and his friend were arrested, but the attacker in the red hoodie was never caught. Witnesses described the terrifying scene with kids running for cover as their game abruptly ended due to gunfire. One young girl was seen on camera scrambling for safety. Another girl was in the car with her passenger door still open when the driver hit the accelerator in panic. The emotional toll on the community was immense. One resident told reporters she had been in that exact spot just hours earlier with her mother. The thought that they could have been easily caught in the middle of a shooting was disheartening. Brutal bar attack. It was closing time at Jake's Saloon, a popular college bar just blocks from the University of Toledo in Ohio. For the staff, it was the end of another routine night, but for one group of men, the night was far from over. The situation was about to take a hideously violent turn. 4 Saudi students were playing a game of pool and refused to leave when asked by an employee. The security footage then captured the horrifying scene that followed. The men surrounded the employee, and when a coworker rushed in to help, all hell broke loose. Suddenly, the pool cues weren't for playing games. The students started swinging them wildly, bashing employees over the head. The brawl spilled out into the parking lot, where the men attacked anyone they saw. A woman was punched in the face, another man was brutally beaten. From chairs to broken bottles, the attackers basically used anything they could find as weapons. A registered nurse who was also struck in the head later said that they all thought somebody was going to die. A student and UPS employee, Timothy McWaters, suffered the worst of the violence. As soon as the attackers tried to flee in their Porsche, he pulled out his phone to take a picture of their license plate. That's when 2 of them jumped him. While one held him down, the other began stabbing him relentlessly in the head with a broken pool cue. Even though the stabbings happened off camera, McWaters was later seen in the CCTV with his head and hands completely covered in his own blood. He needed 21 surgical staples to close the wound on his scalp. The attackers were then arrested in their homes and booked into jail for a felony attack. 6 days after their arrest, all 4 men posted the $100,000 bail, and the next day they were on a plane out of the country. For the victims, the nightmare had just begun. They were left with physical injuries, crippling hospital bills, and the psychological trauma of the attack. The bar's reputation was destroyed, and its revenue was cut in half. The owner was forced to sell the bar he had owned for nearly 2 decades. McWaters himself was left with PTSD and was unable to finish school. Shooting of rapper Foolio. When the rapper Foolio was fatally shot in 2024, it sent shockwaves through the community. He was only 26 years old, with a dedicated fan base, but it was the CCTV footage of his death that really disturbed everyone. On June 23rd, Foolio was out celebrating his birthday at an Airbnb. But then the party got too rowdy and he was forced to move to a nearby Holiday Inn. He then posted on his Instagram thanking his fans, saying that it was the best birthday ever. At around 4:40 a.m., the celebration descended into chaos. CCTV footage from multiple cameras showed 2 men with rifles sneaking up to the parking lot. Foolio was already in his car and had no idea that these were about to be his final moments. Once the attackers reached the front entrance, they started shooting. Foolio's car was seen driving away, but unfortunately, he drove right into their trap. Even though the car managed to get away, Foolio was shot multiple times, and he did not survive. 3 other people were also hit, but their injuries were minor. The news shocked everyone, but for those who followed Foolio's career closely, it wasn't entirely a surprise. He was a known member of Jacksonville's 6 Block gang, which had a feud with many rival groups. Foolio had revealed online that he had already survived multiple attempts on his life. In 2021, he was grazed by a bullet in a drive-by, and in late 2023, he was shot in the foot. He was also famous for releasing controversial songs dissing his rival gang members. He was playing with fire. The investigation revealed that the attack was a planned execution. Surveillance footage showed that a group of suspects had traveled all the way from Jacksonville just to shoot down Foolio. 2 people were tasked with tracking the rapper. Once he was cornered, the gunmen went to execute the final part of the plan. This time, his attackers didn't miss. Level 5. Brighton Heights Funeral Shooting. October 28th was supposed to be a day for mourning and remembrance for a family, but the funeral service was disrupted when 2 gunmen opened fire at the guests, creating unimaginable chaos. The service was being held in Pittsburgh for a man who had been the victim of a shooting just weeks earlier. But as family and friends gathered to say their final goodbyes, 2 figures dressed head to toe in black were lurking nearby. In the chilling security camera footage, the men appeared to scope out the church as they planned their attack. After 25 minutes, they returned, and this time they opened fire on the mourners standing outside. The attack was merciless. Everyone scrambled for their lives, seeking cover from the hail of bullets. One shooter chased down a man who was already hit, firing again and again as the victim desperately tried to get away. A total of 23 shots were fired, and one victim was hit an unbelievable 13 times. Another woman was seen limping toward the church with a gunshot wound on her leg. And remember when we said the funeral was for a young man who had also been shot? Well, according to the investigators, the shooters came to that church to continue a brutal gang war and specifically targeted the family as an act of revenge. Fight ends in tragedy. In Minnesota, a group of teens thought it was a good idea to start a fight at 1:30 in the morning, but what starts with fists and bats quickly turned into a crime scene when a teen was run over by a car. Dylan Simmons was playing hacky sack with his friends at the park when he texted Devin Bailey to come and fight. Apparently, the two had been feuding for years. Devin arrived in his car, but he wasn't alone. His sister and a couple more friends joined him, armed with a baseball bat and folding knife, ready for any kind of situation. But nobody expected what happened next. Dylan Simmons got into his sedan. Witnesses watched in terror as he looped his car around the parking lot and drove straight toward a group of about 6 people, narrowly missing them. But instead of calling it a day, he circled back. His intentions were now horrifyingly clear. After striking a parked car, he backed up and then sped forward one final time. And this time, he didn't miss. The car slammed into the crowd, driving directly over 17-year-old Darisha Bailey Vatt, Devin's sister. Realizing what he had done, Simmons and his passenger fled the scene. The entire incident was captured from 3 different angles, each one more brutal than the last. Darish suffered multiple fractures and a traumatic head injury and passed away at the scene. The trial that followed was a complete mess. Simmons' defense team claimed that he had acted in self-defense. They filed dozens of motions attempting to get charges dismissed and prevent officers from testifying. It became so intense that Simmons and Darisha's families had a shouting match outside the courtroom. Then Simmons' mother went on television and claimed her son wasn't violent, that he was simply scared. When he drove forward, some people had jumped out of the way, and unfortunately the victim didn't. What a horrible thing to say. And the claim that he was scared? Simmons could be heard laughing in the clip just as he aimed his car towards the group. Calling that scared seems like a sick joke. Fatal shooting outside restaurant. For Kevin Hernandez, a simple stop for dinner became a tragic chapter of his life. A chapter written in betrayal by his own flesh and blood. On a late Thursday night, Hernandez pulled his pickup truck into the parking lot of a Louisiana fried chicken and seafood restaurant. Hernandez was just stopping for a meal, but he would never get the chance to eat it. While he was still in his truck, an SUV pulled up and 2 figures jumped out with guns. They ran directly at his vehicle and unleashed a barrage of bullets, firing more than a dozen rounds into the driver's side. The CCTV footage captured one final, haunting detail. As the gunman opened fire, the pickup truck slowly started to roll backward. Whether it was Hernandez's frantic attempt to flee or simply his foot slipping from the brake as his life was cut short, it's a pretty horrible sight. When police arrived, they found the 36-year-old inside his truck with multiple gunshot wounds, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. The entire video captured the cold, calculated attack, and it wasn't long before authorities identified their suspects. In a shocking twist, it was revealed that one of the suspected shooters was Hernandez's own 17-year-old half-brother. The motive was devastatingly simple. A family dispute had spiraled into a cold-blooded execution. Level 6. Anthony Galea. Social media has shown us some of the best of humanity, but in November 2016 it showed the absolute worst when Anthony Galea broadcast himself shooting an innocent woman in her own home. On November 8, 2016, Galea was out with his girlfriend. As the night progressed, he decided to stream on Facebook Live. The initial footage was extremely distressing. It showed Galea and his girlfriend drinking heavily, laughing as he waved a gun and made a series of threats. But nobody could have predicted just how far he was willing to go. As he grew more agitated, his threats became more specific. He went as far as to say that he wanted to pop someone. Finally, Galea arrived at a house in Jackson, Michigan. He then knocked on the door before the camera feed suddenly went black. But the audio continued, and what it captured was pure terror. First, there was the unmistakable sound of a door being kicked in. It was followed by the deafening blast of multiple gunshots. In the darkness, Galea's voice cut through the chaos, screaming, "See you in prison." A panicked female voice could be heard in the background desperately asking if he just attacked someone. It was 26-year-old Brittany Southwell. A single bullet pierced her lungs, and she died from her injuries. In a final heartbreaking detail, witnesses stated that she was holding her baby boy in her arms at the very moment she was hit. Gellia's defense attorney later argued that he didn't know Southwell was behind the door, but the Facebook Live video was an undeniable proof of his state of mind. It showed a man laughing hysterically at what he was doing like it was some kind of game. He seemed fully aware of what was going to happen. Death on the Dallas Express. As shocking as the shooting of Fulio was, it's the crimes committed in broad daylight that are truly unbelievable. Mo 3 was ambushed in the dark. He was up against a guy so unhinged that he hunted down the rapper on the Dallas Express at noon. The disturbing footage was recorded on 2022 by a truck's dash cam. On the 11th of November, Mo 3 was driving on I-35 when a black sedan cut into his path. In hindsight, Mo 3 should have sped up, but instead he slammed his car to a halt and got out. He realized he was in mortal danger and went to the other side, presumably to get a gun from his stash. But his fate was already sealed. A masked man got out of the sedan with a gun in his hand and started firing at him non-stop. Mo 3 had no choice but to get out and run for it across a busy highway. He probably thought that no one in their right mind would actually chase him, but he underestimated how crazy the attacker truly was. He chased the rapper on foot and fired multiple shots. A few moments later, the assailant returned and drove away in his car. Mo 3 never came back in the frame. Other video clips showed bystanders frantically trying to perform CPR on the rapper as he lay motionless on the cold asphalt, but he was already dead. While authorities began their investigation, a darker theory began to bubble up in the deep corners of the internet. Allegedly, rapper Yella Breezy had hired a hitman to attack Mo 3, and some people believed that Mo 3's manager possibly set him up by taking his gun out of his glove box. And that's what makes the chilling footage of his final moments so much harder to watch. The gun he went to collect might not even have been there. Because of this alleged betrayal, he didn't even stand a chance. Level 7. Ambushed on the highway. Fresh out of prison, Omar Felix Cueva made a chilling promise to an undercover agent. He was not going back to jail. He even carried a rifle specifically for that reason. And that's what cost Officer Darian Jarrett his life. On February 4th, 2021, Jarrett was told to pull over a white pickup truck for having dark-tinted windows. But he didn't know that the man was armed or that federal agents were already after him. In the body cam footage, Jarrett approached the truck and asked the suspect to step away from the wheel. At first, the exchange was peaceful. Jarrett asked Cueva about his tinted windows and if he had any firearms. Cueva admitted he had a rifle in the truck, so Jarrett asked him if he could take it off for his safety.
You mind if I take it off you for my safety?
That's when the situation turned deadly. Cueva exited the driver's side, but not to surrender. He had the rifle in his hands, and before Jarrett could even react, Cueva opened fire. The dashcam showed Jarrett falling to the ground as Cueva unloaded bullets. He even approached Jarrett to shoot him again at point-blank range. Cueva then got back in his truck and sped away, leaving the officer dying on the side of the highway. 2 officers arrived at the scene shortly afterwards, but Jarrett's wounds were too severe. At that point, more police cars were already on their way, and it soon led to a 40-mile high-speed chase. The pursuit came to a dramatic and violent end in Las Cruces. After police used spike strips to shred his tires, Cueva's truck was finally stopped. Body cam footage captured the chaotic shootout that erupted the second the truck skidded to a halt. Cueva exited his vehicle, firing wildly at the officers surrounding him. In the exchange of gunfire, another police officer was also wounded. Cueva himself was also struck multiple times and was pronounced dead at the scene. Officer Darian Jarrett was mourned as a hero, a man who was always smiling. but his death left behind a grieving family. Jared had 3 children and was expecting a 4th with his wife. A storm of controversy exploded over why a police officer was sent into such a dangerous situation unprepared. Proper preparation would have meant level 3 body armor, which was designed to stop the exact rounds that pierced the officer's heart. Instead, Jared unknowingly recorded his own last moments on Earth. The deadly stabbing of Officer Jonah Hernandez. What you're about to see next could be some of the most graphic body cam footage ever found. On a Sunday evening, as most people were settling in to watch the Super Bowl, Las Cruces police officer Jonah Hernandez received a routine trespassing call for a property on South Valley Drive. But what should have been a simple interaction was about to turn into the single darkest moment in his department's history. Officer Hernandez arrived on scene, spotted the suspect, and went over to talk to him. The man, who was later identified as Armando Silva, had a long and violent criminal history, but what he did next was an act of pure madness. Officer Hernandez's body cam footage showed him calmly approaching the suspect, but Silva's response was immediate, unprovoked, and brutally violent. With no warning whatsoever, he lunged at Hernandez, pulling out a large kitchen knife and ruthlessly attacking him with it. The video is difficult to watch, as Silva stabs the officer again and again. He did not seem at all bothered by Hernandez's screams or the blood that was gushing out of his wounds. Meanwhile, a bystander who witnessed the entire attack grabbed his own firearm from his car. He confronted Silva, shooting him and stopping the attack. As witnesses rushed to the officer's side, one of them grabbed the radio and called for help. But by the time help arrived, there was nothing to be done. Hernandez had been fatally stabbed in the neck, and he bled out in the parking lot. He was the first officer in the history of the Las Cruces Police Department to have died in the line of duty. When the department was later forced to release the footage, the police chief described it as the worst video he had ever watched in his life. When a police chief says that, it carries a serious amount of weight. Hernandez was a husband and a father, and he tragically lost his life in the most senseless and brutal way possible. If these clips got under your skin, you have no idea how deep this rabbit hole gets. The footage of these disturbing CCTV incidents will leave you speechless.